set up on GitHub's Octokit repositories, because there's a lot of stuff going on and it's really hard to maintain all by hand. And why should I, if I can have my bots to help me? So here are two examples. This is how my notifications usually look like when my friendly baby bots come and send me notifications that they found some work for me to review. So this is from the OpenAPI repository. And what the OpenAPI repository is that it's basically a copy of GitHub's official REST API description, but it amends it with a few extensions which are necessary for deprecations. For example, sometimes operation IDs change, which results in changes of the REST API endpoint methods, which is a breaking change, not for the OpenAPI spec, but for Octokit. So in this step, I'm able to amend these OpenAPI specs with an extension for Octokit so that I can log deprecation messages for users and avoid releasing too many breaking changes. Anyway, so my bot downloaded all the OpenAPI specifications here, and I can check out the second commit, which updated the specs that I'm interested in. And there's a lot. You can see, like, I think they are like 30, 40,000 lines of code. So I will start by just hiding them all. And the one that I'm most interested in is this one. This is the API github.com specification. And it looks like GitHub released a new REST API endpoint. So we can check that out, what it is. In the documentation, it will be easier to read. Okay. Okay, so this is about GitHub Pages and the CNAME functionality, where you can set a custom domain name and you can check if there's any problem with the DNS settings, I guess. Cool. So here we have a new endpoint. This is what is relevant for Octokit, because this will result in octokit.rest.repos.getPages health check method. And then parameters are just owner and repo. So they are just the URL parameters. So that looks good. And we have a response specification here that we can check out in a moment. And I'm interested in the other responses right now. This is the, no, this one is the extension I've been talking about. So this is specific to Octokit, where I would add changes if, for example, the operation ID would change from get pages health check to just get pages health, for example. Okay, so that looks good. There's some other changes here that don't think will have any effect. This is the response we are interested in. So there will be a domain key in the response, and it all looks good. And I'm checking for things that might cause trouble for, like the automated generation of TypeScript definitions, for example, before I merge it in. And sometimes I catch things that the GitHub API team did not think about, but it impacts SDK. So at this point, I can give them feedback and say, like, hey, could you maybe reword the operation ID, for example, to make it more consistent with the other operation IDs. But this one looks good. And I approve it. So this check is happening once per day on a schedule. And if there are no changes, nothing will happen. But if the bot finds changes, it opens this pull request. I can actually show you this workflow really quick here. So this is, oops, not issue templates, but workflows update. So every day at 4 a.m. Pacific time, it downloads the specification from GitHub's official repository, and then it runs the build where it amends the specification with the x-Octokit extension. And then it uses an action of mine, which either creates a new pull request or it updates an existing one if it finds any changes. And that's all. So now when I merge it, I have to use the correct commit message because all the releases are automated with semantic release. So I'm going in here and I actually want this because this is the new endpoint. So basically I would say this is a feature and this is the new endpoint. And that's what I want to use as commit message. Okay, so it will be preset here. Okay. So now we can watch the release happen automatically. Shift F, by the way, makes these logs full screen so you have more screen state to see the logs. And here's semantic release at work. And if everything goes well, it should release a new version in a moment. And after a new release of Octokit OpenAPI is released, a lot of other Octokit repositories that depend on it and use it for their own automation are notified about this release. So something is hanging here now. Let me reload this. So while this is going on, I can show you the automation I use to notify other repositories. Oh, this is happening right now. Okay, so it released version 2.17.0, and it will now add comments to all the pull requests. Oh, okay. This takes a while because it also uploads all the final OpenAPI specs to each release. So we have these assets available if we ever want to download an OpenAPI spec for a previous version. I can show you the specification for semantic release to upload these assets to GitHub. So all it does here is basically sets the assets option for semantic release GitHub and says upload all the files that match this pattern. Now when I go to release, there should be the new version here, and you can see all these assets have been uploaded. So that is great. Now that the release is there, another action was kicked off, which is release notification. And what release notification does is it notifies all these repositories that a new release occurred in the Octokit OpenAPI repository. You can see this is mostly Octokit repositories, but there are some others here as well. And the way this works is that I registered an app, which is called Octokit Release Notify. Some instructions. So you can basically take advantage of this automation yourself if you want to be notified when a new OpenAPI release is available. And then the action here, hold on, how can you see the workflow file? So, and then it uses my release notifier action, which requires the GitHub app ID and private key. And then it does all the notification by using repository dispatch events. And then these different repositories receive these dispatch events and can use them as trigger for their own GitHub actions. All right, let me go back to GitHub notifications. So you see the release was up, created, and the comment was added to the pull request here. That is all very helpful if someone was watching it. And then you see all these new pull requests right here that have been triggered by the release notification that I was talking about. So here, this is the OpenAPI types, which is a direct transpilation of the OpenAPI spec to TypeScript. And I can have a look here. So this is the cache. This is not so relevant. This is just for me to keep track which source OpenAPI version was used. It's a special field I added a package.json file. And this is what's relevant. Here are the types. So here is the new path with the method get. And then the transpilation creates an operations object to make it easier accessible. So let's look for this. Okay, here are the parameters and the responses. And this is what we are interested in. This is all the response types that are new. And you can see that the domain may be present. So this is something that I'm not sure if it's actually correct. So that's something where I would go and check in with the GitHub team later, just to make sure that this is really optional or is it always present? Okay, but for now, this is good. I don't need to hold on merging this because if the domain is always present, it will just be a fixed release later. Cool. So I will use the same commit message here and say get repos on the repo pages health and approve it. And now the same thing happened. Okay, this one is not using this title as commit message because there is only one commit. And then if there's only one commit in a pull request, then the commit message is used and not the title. So I have to do this. It's really something I want to create an app for. Whenever I change a pull request title to a semantic commit message, I want my bot to create like an additional commit so the pull request title is used for squash commits. All right, this will kick off yet another release automation and notification automation as well. But I can mark this as viewed. So you can see there are some plugins that are affected by this. I'm pretty sure that enterprise is not affected by this. I don't think this is present in any enterprise method. And you can see this is just cache. This is not the code that is used in production. So I would just say build cache and merge it in. I could just close the pull request, but then the next pull request would have more changes I would need to review. So I just prefer to merge these cache updates in without releasing a new version. Okay, so that was that. Throttling. So the Throttling plugin uses the OpenAPI spec because the OpenAPI spec has an extension that says which API endpoints create notifications. And if an API endpoint creates a notification, you are more likely to hit an abuse limit if you hit this endpoint too often. If you create too many issues, too many comments in a too short amount of time, you will get in trouble. And the throttling plugin has a special rule for these endpoints, which waits 3 seconds instead of 1 second between requests for these endpoints. But it's not the case here because this is a GET request. So we can again just say build cache and approve. Oh, hey, Daniel. Sorry, I haven't seen you there. I'm still new to this. I have no idea what I'm doing. Cool. Thank you for coming along watching. Yeah, so I'm just talking today about some automation that I've set up for the Octokit repositories. And I'm walking through them right now. So there was an update to the OpenAPI specification by GitHub. Okay, we can. This is the one I've been waiting for. So what happens now, the REST endpoint methods, this is where all the Octokit, .rest, .repos, .get methods, and so on are coming from, will receive an update, but it will likely fail. And the reason is that it will also need the new OpenAPI, no, the Octokit types to work. So let me show you what I mean by that. I will hide the JSON and Markdown files because they're not relevant. So this is the one we are interested in. And it's using this endpoint from Octokit types, which does not yet exist. So first, I will just say Octokit REST repos check. I'm actually surprised that the checks are passing. Before merging this, I will go to Octokit types, which was notified by the release of Octokit OpenAPI types, if you remember. So, and in here, we should also see this is cache. So this is the one we are interested in. So this is the new endpoint that was added, which is used now in the REST API endpoints plugin. So we have to release this first. Oops, again. This would save me so much time to have this automated anyway. So what will happen now is there will be a new release for Octokit types, and Octokit types releases will update the OpenAPI update pull requests as well. So you get updates from 2 ways here, if I recall correctly. here. So it's the repository dispatch event as trigger, and it's triggered by Octokit OpenAPI, which is why we got the pull request initially. But it will also be triggered if we have a new release by Octokit types. And both of them will end up creating or updating a pull request. So basically, I want to wait until the release is done. And it is already, we already see the notifications going out. So, and here's the one for plugin REST endpoint methods. Perfect. So now we should see the action triggered in this repository by the new release of Octokit types, which is here. So you see there's a lot of automation happening, and I'm usually not there watching it all the time. I just let it go, happen in the background, and then just act on the notifications that I receive. But there's so much work that is automated here that I don't need to take care of it myself anymore. It's a lot of fun to automate this stuff. And if you have any questions about automation, please let me know. I love to talk about this stuff. So there it updated the Octokit types. It's generating all the documentation now. And now it's updating the pull request. Okay, so when we go to the pull request in its repository, we will see a new commit here. And this commit simply updates the types here. It sets the minimum version to 6.14, which includes the new endpoint type that is used in this pull request. Okay, so now we are good to go here. And yeah, this is actually a good case for this new automation that GitHub released. I just want permit squash commits here. Here, auto merge. So I think enable auto merge squash with this commit message. Sweet. So now I don't need to hang around here anymore. If these tests pass, then a new version is published. And when a new version is published of this plugin, then Octokit REST gets an update right now from Renovate, but I might change it to my own automation because it's quicker and I have more control. And also the new Octokit JS, which is basically the all batteries included official SDK now, successor of Octokit REST if you want. So we'll receive an update as well. Okay, let me see what else we got in our notifications here. So there's another update to Enterprise Server, which I think we can ignore. This is probably just about the types. Yep. So I can approve that. And I just know what I'm doing here. So this is just build apps Octokit types latest. Okay. So there is another repository, app permissions, which is basically like a machine-readable representation of all GitHub app permissions. And I do this by using a cron job that is scraping this documentation page with all of these paths, and then the according permission, like deployments, emails, followers, and so on. And I received a pull request from my friendly bot here, which tells me that the very same new endpoint also includes new permissions. So you will need the pages permission with write access to use this endpoint with your GitHub apps. Okay. Pages permission with write access. Okay, approve. So that's fine. Okay, and again, semantic release will do its thing here, and we will get a new release of the app permissions, and everyone else will get notified through whatever channels they have set up. Yeah, I think that's a wrap for today. Let me know if you have any other questions. You can contact me on Twitter. I'm gr2m. And yeah, thank you all for watching.